The Cleveland Browns insider world just detonated with the most damaging revelation yet about Kevin Stefanski's catastrophic mishandling of Shedeur Sabotage. And this time, the accusations are coming from the most credible and respected voice in Cleveland sports media. Mary Kay Cabot, the legendary Browns insider who has covered this franchise for decades and knows absolutely everything happening behind closed doors, just completely unloaded on Stefanski for his inexcusable failure to prepare Sanders with first-team practice repetitions. But that shocking indictment isn't even the most disturbing part of this increasingly complicated story. While all this quarterback drama was unfolding on the field in Baltimore, Shedeur Sabotage was simultaneously dealing with an even more troubling situation off the field. His home was burglarized during the Ravens game by 3 thieves who deliberately took advantage of knowing he would be out of town for the game. And the entire disgusting crime was captured on security camera footage that's now spreading rapidly across the internet and social media. We're about to break down everything that just happened in what might be the wildest and most chaotic 24 hours in Cleveland Browns quarterback history. Mary Kay's absolutely brutal assessment of Stefanski's coaching failures. Jerry Jeudy's eye-opening comments about what he personally witnessed from Sanders during that chaotic game. The shocking home invasion that specifically targeted Sanders while he was trying to make his NFL debut. And what all of this means for the future of the Browns quarterback situation as this franchise spirals deeper and deeper into complete dysfunction. This is a story that keeps getting more bizarre and disturbing with every single new development. And you absolutely need to hear the full truth about what's really happening behind the scenes in Cleveland. Let's start with the off-field nightmare that Shedeur Sabotage had to deal with while he was literally in the middle of making his first professional football appearance. Security camera footage from Sanders' home shows 3 men casually walking around his property, breaking into his house, and stealing valuables while Sanders was on the field in Baltimore, getting thrown into the fire against one of the most dominant defenses in football. The video is absolutely infuriating and disturbing to watch. These cowards knew exactly when to strike. They knew Sanders would be out of town for the game. They knew the house would be completely empty for hours. And they deliberately took advantage of that knowledge to commit a crime that's becoming disturbingly common and widespread across the National Football League. The footage shows these 3 thieves moving through Sanders' home like they own the place, rifling through personal belongings, grabbing bags and valuables, completely violating his privacy and sense of security in his own home. The text overlay on the video circulating social media says it all. Someone close to the situation wrote that they can't wait until these criminals try to sell those stolen bags because what happens in the dark always comes to light eventually. That's a promise and a warning that these thieves will be identified and caught. And honestly, they deserve everything that's coming to them legally. This is absolutely pathetic. This is pure cowardice. These are grown men who apparently cannot find legitimate employment or simply don't want to put in honest effort and hard work. So instead, they specifically target a young athlete who's out there trying to chase his dreams and build a professional career. This isn't an isolated incident either, and that's what makes it even more disturbing and alarming. Over the past several months, multiple high-profile NFL players have had their homes targeted by what appears to be organized theft rings that monitor player schedules and strike when they know the athletes will definitely be at games or team facilities. Joe Burrow's home was broken into during a Monday Night Football game. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce both had their homes burglarized during the same weekend. Bobby Okereke, Linval Joseph, and several other players have reported similar break-ins. This is clearly a coordinated criminal enterprise that's specifically and deliberately targeting NFL players, and it's escalating to the point where player safety and security is becoming a genuine league-wide concern that demands immediate action. For Shedeur Sabotage to be dealing with this complete violation of his home and personal space while simultaneously dealing with the most stressful and high-pressure moment of his young professional career is absolutely heartbreaking. Imagine being thrown into an NFL game completely unprepared, facing one of the best defenses in all of football, knowing the entire sports world is watching and judging every single throw you make, And then finding out afterward that while you were out there trying to compete and prove yourself, criminals were inside your home stealing your belongings and violating your privacy. That's the kind of emotional and psychological burden that no rookie quarterback should ever have to carry. And it adds yet another layer of context to just how incredibly difficult Sanders' situation has been from the very beginning. The security concerns are real and they're serious. These aren't random opportunistic burglaries. These are calculated crimes committed by people who are clearly monitoring NFL schedules, tracking when players will be away from their homes, and ruthlessly exploiting that information. The fact that it happened to Sanders during his first meaningful game action makes it feel even more targeted and malicious, though it's likely just the unfortunate timing of an ongoing criminal pattern affecting players across the league. Regardless of the specifics, prayers absolutely go out to Sanders, not just for his football career and development, but for his safety and security off the field. No one should have to worry about their home being violated while they're at work trying to earn a living. And the fact that this keeps happening repeatedly to NFL players suggests the league and law enforcement agencies need to do significantly more to protect these athletes from organized crime. But let's pivot to the on-field story that's dominating Cleveland sports media and causing absolute chaos throughout Browns Nation. Mary Kay Cabot, who is as plugged in and credible as any NFL insider in the entire business, just delivered the most devastating and damning indictment yet of Kevin Stefanski's handling of Shedeur Sanders. During a recent media appearance breaking down the quarterback situation, Mary Kay was directly asked whether the Browns should have given Sanders first-team practice repetitions during the season leading up to his debut, and her response was absolutely unequivocal and brutally honest. She said 100% they absolutely should have, and she did not hold back whatsoever in explaining precisely why Stefanski's failure to do so represented organizational malpractice of the highest order. Mary Kay acknowledged the standard NFL protocol that starting quarterbacks receive the overwhelming majority of practice repetitions, while backup quarterbacks typically get very limited work with the first-team offense. She understands that most backup quarterbacks around the league don't get extensive practice time with starting units. That's normal across the NFL. But here's where her analysis becomes absolutely crucial and cuts to the heart of the matter. She pointed out that the Browns find themselves in a completely unique situation that doesn't conform to standard backup quarterback protocols. They're the only team in the entire National Football League with two rookie quarterbacks in this particular predicament. Most backup quarterbacks have played professional football before and understand NFL speed and complexity. Most backup quarterbacks aren't backing up another rookie who also desperately needs development time and repetitions. The Browns' situation was fundamentally different from the standard backup quarterback scenario that exists on most NFL rosters, and that unique circumstance required a completely different approach to practice preparation. The logic Mary Kay laid out is absolutely ironclad and impossible to argue against if you're being honest and objective. If you're going to designate Shedeur Sanders as your backup quarterback, then you have a professional obligation to actually prepare him to function as a backup quarterback. That means giving him at least a handful of meaningful repetitions during the week with the first-team offense. Even just a few snaps taking the ball from center Ethan Posich, throwing passes to Jerry Jeudy, letting the offensive lineman hear his cadence and voice, getting a feel for how the receivers move and run their routes. Basic, fundamental preparation that would allow Sanders to actually function competently if he had to enter a game unexpectedly. The Browns didn't do any of that, and Mary Kay called them out directly and publicly for being remiss in not giving Sanders any first-team repetitions whatsoever. But Mary Kay went even further with an observation that cuts straight to the heart of this organizational dysfunction and exposes the dishonesty of the entire situation. She revealed that she actually wrote a newspaper column earlier in the season, suggesting that Sanders might be best served by not being designated as the number 2 quarterback at all, specifically because she knew with certainty that he wouldn't get the necessary repetitions and wouldn't have a game plan designed around his specific skill set if he had to play. Think about how absolutely damning that revelation is for a moment. A veteran insider who covers this team on a daily basis could see months in advance that the Browns were deliberately setting Sanders up to fail by making him the backup without actually preparing him to be the backup. She literally predicted this exact disaster would happen with remarkable accuracy, and she was proven completely correct when Sanders got thrust into that Baltimore game looking utterly lost and unprepared. Mary Kay's point about the game plan is particularly important and often gets overlooked in discussions about quarterback preparation. Even if Sanders had somehow received more practice repetitions, the offensive game plan for any given week is specifically designed around Dorian Thompson-Robinson's strengths and weaknesses as the starting quarterback. The plays that get called, the routes that receivers run, the protection schemes that get used, all of it gets tailored to the starting quarterback. When Sanders enters the game cold without preparation, he's not just dealing with lack of chemistry with his receivers. He's running an offense that wasn't designed for him, calling plays that don't maximize his particular skill set, operating in a system that was built around a completely different quarterback with different capabilities. That's yet another enormous layer of disadvantage that made his debut even more difficult than it already needed to be. The most powerful and significant part of Mary Kay's analysis was her alternative suggestion for how the Browns should have handled this situation. If the Browns genuinely weren't going to give Sanders first-team repetitions and weren't going to prepare him properly to play, then they absolutely should not have made him the backup quarterback at all. Keep him as the third-string developmental project. Sign a veteran free agent to be the actual functional backup who can step in if needed. Don't create this completely false situation where Sanders has the official title of backup quarterback but receives none of the preparation and support that should come with that role. That would have been the honest and professional organizational approach. Instead, the Browns promoted Sanders to backup in name only, while continuing to treat him exactly like a distant third stringer who would never see the field. And that fundamentally dishonest approach is what led directly to the disaster we all witnessed on national television. Now let's talk about what Jerry Jeudy said about Shedeur Sanders after that game, because it provides crucial on-field perspective about what Sanders was dealing with during his chaotic debut. Jeudy, who was supposed to be Sanders' #1 receiving target, and who shockingly admitted he'd never thrown a single ball with Sanders until actual game day, spoke about watching Sanders gradually gain confidence as the game progressed. Jeudy said Sanders was understandably slow to gain confidence early in the game, which makes perfect sense given the impossible circumstances. The first time throwing to your receivers in a live NFL game against a ferocious defense, of course you're going to start slow and uncomfortable and tentative. But Jeudy noticed that as Sanders got his feet wet and settled into the rhythm of NFL football, he became progressively more confident and comfortable operating the offense. Jeudy's comments about that crucial third-quarter moment when everything was on the line are particularly revealing and telling. He essentially said Sanders understood exactly what was at stake, understood he needed to bounce back from his early struggles, and you just had to keep playing through mistakes because not every play is going to be perfect in the NFL. That's veteran-level perspective and maturity from a receiver who watched Sanders fight through the absolute worst possible debut circumstances and still managed to nearly tie the game on that final dramatic drive. Jeudy clearly saw something genuine in Sanders during that game that gave him confidence the kid can actually play at this level if given proper preparation and organizational support. The broader context here is that literally everyone around Sanders, from his receivers to the media members covering the team to fans watching at home, can plainly see that he was deliberately set up to fail by the coaching staff. The only people who don't seem willing to admit that obvious reality are Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff who created this entire disaster through their negligence. Mary Kay Cabot calling them out publicly and directly is enormously significant because she's not some hot take artist desperately looking for clicks and controversy. She's a respected journalist with decades of credibility who chooses her words extremely carefully and maintains professional relationships. When she says 100% the Browns should have given Sanders first-team repetitions and were remiss for not doing so, that carries substantial weight and authority. That's an indictment that the organization cannot simply brush off or ignore without consequences. The unique nature of having two rookie quarterbacks on the roster is the key point that keeps getting completely lost in debates about standard backup protocols. Yes, most backup quarterbacks don't receive extensive first-team repetitions during practice. But most backup quarterbacks are veterans who've been in the league for multiple years and thoroughly understand NFL speed and complexity. When you have two developmental rookies who both need coaching and repetitions, you absolutely cannot treat one like a veteran backup who doesn't need preparation. Both players desperately need repetitions, both need development time, and both need to be genuinely ready to play, because you honestly don't know which one is going to be your future franchise quarterback or even your present starter. Stefanski's decision to give all the developmental resources to Dorian Thompson-Robinson while completely starving Sanders of any meaningful preparation reveals his true priorities and biases. He wanted Thompson-Robinson to succeed because he was his personal selection, the quarterback he believed in, and probably pushed hard to acquire. Sanders was the organizational pick that got forced on him by ownership, and Stefanski responded by essentially refusing to develop him out of spite and ego protection. That's not professional coaching at the highest level. That's petty organizational politics that deliberately sacrificed player development and team success just to make a personal point about who's in charge. The ramifications of this catastrophic failure extend far beyond one disastrous game performance. Sanders now has the permanent stink of that Baltimore performance attached to his professional reputation. Casual fans who only saw that single game will forever think of him as a quarterback who couldn't handle NFL football, even though the real story is that he was never given any legitimate chance to prepare for NFL football. His confidence took a massive hit. His development timeline has been severely damaged, and worst of all, his entire future with the Browns organization is now in serious jeopardy because Stefanski has definitively proven he has absolutely no interest in coaching him up or giving him legitimate opportunities to succeed. So what's your take on this absolute chaos and organizational dysfunction? Does Mary Kay's brutal assessment of Stefanski's failure to prepare Sanders change how you view this entire situation? Are you as disturbed as everyone else by the home invasion that specifically targeted Sanders during his debut? Should the Browns fire Stefanski immediately and give Sanders a fresh start with a completely new coaching staff? What kind of enhanced security measures should the NFL implement league-wide to protect players from these organized theft rings? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this conversation is far from over and everyone has strong opinions. If you want to stay completely updated on every development in this ongoing Browns disaster and follow Sanders' journey through all this adversity, you need to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. Turn on those post notifications so you never miss an update, because with everything happening in Cleveland right now, this story is going to keep evolving and getting more complicated. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your take, and subscribe so you're part of the conversation. Until next time, stay tuned because the Browns quarterback circus is just getting started and shows no signs of slowing down.